What if the one thing Iran trusted to keep it safe was gone in a single night? For years, Iran built its power on one belief. As long as this one thing stood, no enemy would dare push too far. Then, Trump made a decision that took it away. Before we go further, hit that like button right now, tap subscribe so you never miss what happens next, and send this video to one person who still thinks Iran is untouchable. Let's get into it. For decades, Iran played a careful game. It never wanted a full war with the United States. It knew it could not win one. So instead, it built something smarter, a shield made of fear. Iran filled the region with proxies, missiles, and threats. It told the world, touch me and I will close the Strait of Hormuz. I will burn your oil markets. I will make every ship in the Gulf a target. That threat worked for almost 40 years. Presidents came and went. Iran kept building. And nobody wanted to be the one who tested that threat and lost. But behind that loud threat was a quiet truth. Iran was never actually strong enough to fight a real war. Its power was built on one asset it could not afford to lose. Not oil, not its army, not even its nuclear program. The one thing Iran truly feared losing was its ability to make the world believe it was too dangerous to touch. That belief was the real weapon. Take away the belief, and everything else falls apart. For years, that belief stayed untouched. Every American president chose caution. Strikes were small, warnings were loud but weak. Iran learned a lesson from all of that silence. It learned that threats work better than actions. It learned that the world would always blink first. And so Iran kept pushing. It backed militias across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. It sent drones into ships. It built one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East. Every attack was small enough to avoid a real war, but big enough to remind everyone that Iran could hurt you if it wanted to. This is the part most people miss. Iran was not trying to win a war. Iran was trying to avoid one, while still looking powerful enough that no one would ever force it into one. It is a strategy built entirely on image. An image only works as long as no one calls your bluff. Then came a moment that changed everything. Tensions in the region kept rising. Attacks on tankers increased. American forces in the Gulf came under threat again and again. And each time the response from Washington was careful, measured, restrained. Iran read that restraint as weakness. It believed it had found the limit of American patience, and that limit was far away. It was wrong. When Trump made his decision, it was not built on caution. It was built on breaking the exact thing Iran depended on the most. Not a random building, not a random convoy. The target was the heart of Iran's deterrence, the base and the systems that made the whole strategy of fear possible in the first place. Reports describe a coordinated strike that hit deep into Iranian military infrastructure, missile storage sites, radar systems, naval assets tied to the ports that Iran used to threaten shipping lanes. This was not a message strike. This was a strike meant to remove capability, to take away the tools that made the threat real. Think about what that means. For 40 years, Iran's power depended on one simple equation. If you attack us, we can make your life unbearable. We can hit your ships. We can close your trade routes. We can hurt your economy without ever declaring war. That equation only works if the tools behind it are real and ready. The moment those tools are destroyed, the equation collapses. The threat becomes empty words, and that is exactly what happened. Right after the strike, something changed in the way the world watched Iran. For the first time in years, Iran's threats sounded less certain. Officials still spoke with the same tone. State media still used the same strong language. But behind the words, something was missing. The confidence that used to come from having real power to back up the talk. You have to understand what a deterrent actually is. It is not the missile itself. It is the belief in the mind of your enemy that using that missile will cost them more than they can accept. The moment your enemy no longer believes that, the missile becomes just another weapon. Not a threat anymore, just metal. Trump's strike hit exactly that belief. It showed the world, and more importantly, it showed Iran's own military leaders, that the shield everyone assumed was strong could be broken. That the deterrent Iran spent decades building could be reduced in a single operation. And once that idea enters people's minds, it never fully leaves. Inside Iran, this hit different than any sanction or diplomatic pressure ever could. Sanctions hurt the economy slowly. People adjust. Governments find workarounds. But a direct strike on the core of your military deterrence is different. It is immediate. It is visible. It cannot be explained away with propaganda forever. Soldiers know the difference between a system that is protected and one that has been exposed. And once exposed, trust inside the military chain starts to crack. Think about the soldiers standing at those bases every single day. They were told their positions were guarded, their radar coverage was strong, and their leadership had planned for every scenario. Then, in a matter of hours, that story fell apart in front of their own eyes. No speech from a general can undo what a soldier sees with his own eyes. And that is a very specific kind of damage. It is not just physical, it is psychological. It spreads from soldier to soldier, from unit to unit, faster than any official statement can control. There's a reason military history is full of moments like this. Armies rarely collapse because they run out of bullets. They collapse because they stop believing they can win. Confidence is the fuel that keeps a fighting force moving forward even when things get hard. Take away that confidence, and even a fully equipped army starts to hesitate. This is exactly the kind of damage that a single well-planned strike can cause. Damage that no repair crew can fix overnight. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Every part of this world runs on fear, but not the fear you're imagining. Before we continue, if this story is pulling you in, drop a comment right now. With just one word, power. It helps this video reach more people who need to see the truth. Now let's keep going. Let's talk about why this specific target mattered so much. Iran's entire regional strategy depends on control of the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow stretch of water carries a massive share of the world's oil. Iran always understood that whoever controls fear around that strait controls leverage. That is why Iran built naval bases, missile batteries, and fast attack boats. This was Iran's ace card, not its nuclear program, which is slow and theoretical, not its regular army, which could never survive a direct fight with American forces. The ace card was the ability to turn water into a global crisis within hours. That ability required specific military assets, radar stations to track ships, missile systems ready to fire, naval bases capable of launching fast boats in large numbers. When those assets were degraded, Iran did not just lose equipment, it lost its leverage over the entire world. Oil markets that used to panic at the mention of Iranian threats started reacting differently. Analysts who once treated Iran's warnings as serious risks began questioning the capability left. This is the real cost of the strike, not just steel and concrete, reputation. And in geopolitics, reputation is currency. Once you spend it, it takes years to rebuild. Consider how much Iran had riding on that single narrow waterway. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. Tankers from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE all funnel through that passage. For decades, energy traders watched rhetoric as closely as they watched actual supply numbers. A single statement from an Iranian commander could send oil prices climbing within hours. That kind of influence is an extraordinary form of power. It does not require winning a war. It only requires making people believe you might start one. That is precisely why this strike was so significant. It did not just destroy hardware. It attacked the machinery behind that market-moving influence. Without functioning radar coverage, without ready missile batteries, without naval assets, the threat to close the strait becomes much harder to make credible. Markets are smart. They do not react to words alone forever. Eventually, they react to capability. And capability is exactly what took the hit. Let's also talk about what this means for Iran's proxies. Groups across the region that depended on Iranian weapons and funding were watching. These groups joined Iran's network because they believed Iran was strong enough to protect them. A visible blow to Iran's military core sends a signal to every one of those groups. If Iran cannot protect its own most important assets, how confident can you be in its protection? That question alone can cause fractures. Alliances built on fear and dependency are fragile. They hold together as long as the stronger partner looks unstoppable. The moment cracks appear, smaller partners start hedging their bets. Some quietly reduce their reliance on Iranian support. Some start looking for other patrons. Some simply go quiet, waiting to see how the story ends before picking a side. This pattern has repeated throughout history. Empires built on fear rarely fall from one battle. They fall because smaller players slowly stop believing the center can protect them. A militia leader who once trusted backing now has to ask harder questions. Can they still deliver weapons on time? Can they still guarantee funding? Can they still promise protection if things escalate? Every unanswered question chips away at loyalty. And loyalty built on fear is different from loyalty built on genuine partnership. When a network is held by the belief that the leading power is too dangerous to abandon, that network is only as strong as the last demonstration of power. This strike was a public demonstration that the demonstration itself could be wrong. Inside Tehran, the leadership faced an impossible choice after the strike. Respond aggressively and risk a wider war that Iran cannot win, or stay quiet and confirm to the world that the deterrent is broken. Both choices come with a heavy price. This is the trap of losing your core strategy. You lose your best option no matter what path you choose. Some analysts believe Iran will try to rebuild its deterrent quickly, replacing systems. That is possible. But rebuilding hardware is not the same as rebuilding belief. The world watched, rivals watched, allies watched, even Iran's own citizens watched. You cannot manufacture your way back to that same level of fear once people have seen it broken. History offers a useful comparison here. When a boxer gets knocked down for the first time, the injury heals, but the next time he steps into the ring, everyone fights him differently. They press harder. They take risks they never would have taken before. They no longer fear him because they watched him hit the canvas. Iran now faces that same shift. The next time it makes a threat, powers will remember this. They will ask a simple question. Is this threat as real as the last one turned out to be? For years, Iran used the threat of chaos as a form of insurance. As long as the world believed conflict would spiral, world powers stayed cautious. The strike challenged that entire premise. It suggested firm action could hit the core. If future leaders start believing they can act without unleashing total chaos, then Iran's oldest strategy of frightening the world stops working the way it used to. The only thing Iran truly feared losing was never a single weapon or base. It was the belief the world had in Iran's ability to make everyone pay for confronting it. That belief kept Iran safe for decades. It kept enemies cautious and rivals guessing. And in one decisive strike, a large piece of that belief was broken. Some argue this makes the region more dangerous, that a wounded power acts unpredictably. That is a fair point. Sometimes broken deterrence leads to desperate lashing out. Sometimes it leads to quiet retreat. Which path Iran chooses will shape the region for years. One thing is clear. The version of Iran that spoke with total confidence took a real hit, and you cannot undo that with words alone. This is more than just another news story. This is a shift in how power and fear work in the most dangerous region on Earth. If you want to understand where this leads next, make sure you're subscribed. Across the Gulf, other governments were watching this unfold with a feeling other than fear. For years, neighbors managed relationship with Iran through careful diplomacy, avoiding a response. Iran's deterrence protected it from neighbors too. Every country calculated policy around it. When that assumption weakened, the entire regional balance shifted under everyone's feet. Gulf states that once spoke carefully began recalculating what was possible. Some saw an opportunity to negotiate from strength, others worried about instability spilling over. Either way, nobody in the region could pretend nothing had changed. The ripple was real. Israel watched with interest. Israeli officials had warned of this missile threat for years. A demonstration that this capability could be degraded offered validation to those warnings. Let's zoom out. Every powerful actor builds its strength on some core asset. Sometimes it is money or information. Sometimes, like Iran, it is the fear it can create. Strength that depends entirely on perception can collapse the moment perception changes. Real, lasting power needs actual capability and genuine alliances built on trust. We see this on smaller stages too. A company that survives because competitors are scared. The system looks unbreakable until someone tests it and discovers the truth. Iran's deterrence was never magic. It was math, bases, and coordination inside managed fear. Once part of that math changed, the entire equation had to be solved again. Iran built an empire on the idea that it was too dangerous to confront directly. But ideas can be tested. And when Trump tested it, the entire foundation shook. What happens next depends on choices still being made in rooms we will never see. Iran might try to rebuild quietly or lash out through its proxies to save face, or it might genuinely reconsider its entire strategy moving toward diplomacy. Whatever path comes next, one truth remains. It was about being believed, about being feared enough that no one dared to test the story. Now that has changed. Power built on fear is powerful, right up until the moment someone stops being afraid. That is the real story, not just buildings, but an attack on a 50-year-old idea. Ideas take years to construct and only moments to break. The strong ones adapt. The fragile ones keep repeating the same threats louder, hoping volume replaces substance. Which path Iran takes will tell us more about its future than any missile count. Belief is much harder to manufacture twice. It was the invisible shield that kept it protected. And when that shield came down, the entire region watched to see what was left standing. Historians may look back at this as a turning point for illusions in the Middle East, or it might fade into a headline. But the people who lived through it will remember. The traders, the soldiers, and the officials all saw the shield show its first real crack. If this story opened your eyes, that is why this channel exists. Hit subscribe and share. There's more to this story, and we are only getting started.